Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
What wounds are unhealed in your life, and do you recognize the source of your pain? Could they possibly be from that deepest cut, betrayal? Welcome to Soul CPR, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Ann Papayoti and have a very special guest who's here to talk to us about betrayal and healing from it. Dr. Debi Silber, founder of the PBT, the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute, and National Forgiveness Day. I love that. I can't wait to talk to her about that, which is celebrated annually on September 1st, is an award-winning speaker and a two-time #1 international best-selling author. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, is also globally ranked within the top 1.5% of podcasts. Her recent PhD study on how we experience betrayal made 3 groundbreaking discoveries that changes how long it takes to heal. And that's important because so many people get stuck for years and even decades, I found in my work. In addition to being on Fox, CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, TEDx twice, and more, she's dedicated to helping people move past their betrayals as well as any other blocks preventing them from the health, work, relationships, confidence, and happiness that they most want, and I'm going to add that they deserve. So welcome to the show, Dr. Debi Silber.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
I am as well, Debi. I feel like we're soul sisters already. I know when we spoke a month ago or so about the show and about the topic, I was like, I feel like when you are talking, I've listened to your TED Talk and all, and you're going through people's journeys. I'm like, me too. That was me. That was me. Yes, you've definitely figured all of this out. So let's help my audience understand betrayal in all of its forms. So how do you define betrayal?
You know, I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust and the more we depend on someone, the deeper, the bigger the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's totally dependent on their parent and the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret, your coworker taking credit for your idea. Still betrayals, different level of cleanup left in the wake.
Right. And different level of pain, perhaps, or different level or different how long it lasts, perhaps the hurt, and perhaps how we deal with it. Some
Yeah.
like with the coworker, perhaps we would confront them, but with someone else more intimate, maybe not.
It's very, very challenging. And it's interesting. And I know we'll get to my study, but originally I was studying the betrayal of a family member, partner, or friend. And I actually had to drop the friend part because while they will infuriate us, just like a coworker, let's say if they betray, it doesn't bring us to our knees. It doesn't break us. Of course, we're never broken, bent like a family member or a partner. Those are the ones that get us the most.
Interesting. So tell me what led you to actually study betrayal.
Yeah, I don't think anybody says, "Oh, that's an interesting topic. I think I want to study it." I started, it was health and then mindset and personal development. I had a really painful betrayal from my family. I thought I did all I needed to do to heal from that. And then a few years later, it happened again. This time it was my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Anybody who's been through it, you're shocked, blindsided, devastated. So got him out of the house and looked at the two experiences thinking, well, what's similar to these two? Of course, me, what else? And I realized I never took my needs seriously. It was always about everybody else. And I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. Usually I go to books, I go to courses. There wasn't anything that I could find that could help me. So Here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving practice, and I went back for a PhD because I had to study this at the PhD level. Like this was so big for me that only a PhD could do this sort of, give me the healing and the help that I needed. While I was there, I did a study. I studied betrayal. And that study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my family, my health, my work, my life.
Amazing. And I know you talk about the lessons of betrayal.
Mhm.
So I heard you say there was something in common with these two betrayals, your
Mhm.
family and your partner, one of them being you, but also how you showed up perhaps in these relationships.
Mhm.
So is that what you mean by the lessons of betrayal?
There's always a lesson waiting to be learned. I'm not suggesting for a minute that it's our fault. It's our
Right.
opportunity. There's a gigantic lesson. Maybe the lesson is that you are lovable, worthy, and deserving. Like, believe that already.
Yeah.
You need better boundaries. Whatever it is, you will have opportunities in the form of people to teach you.
Yes.
And we keep going through these things until we get the mother of all experiences. And then we say, that's it. I'm changing this, that, the other thing. Lesson learned. So that's why one of the classic signs of an unhealed betrayal is a repeat betrayal. The
Repeat
faces
betrayal.
change, but it's the same thing. So that's one of the ways that we see it. We see it in health and work and relationships. But in relationships, classic sign that it's unhealed is that it's repeating.
Yes. And that is exactly my story. And it started with a friend,
Mhm.
but then it became the boyfriend, and then it became the husband and other friends in between. But it did start that way. And I recognized that was repeat betrayals until I think went back and did the work of healing. I've,
Mhm.
I've heard you say that time does not heal all wounds.
No. And we're taught that. We're taught that time heals all wounds. And I can tell you from the research, and this was actually a part of the second discovery, that time won't heal it. Even a new relationship won't heal it.
Mhm,
Healing
mhm.
heals it. And I'm happy to go through. That was the second discovery. I mean, we can go through all of them and you'll see exactly why.
Yeah, we will definitely do that. I think the key to that, when I speak about time healing all wounds, time is a catalyst. Perhaps we need time, but we need to cooperate with time, right? And I think that will show up in what you're going to talk about. So let's talk about those discoveries. We understand now you had your own, obviously very deep and very personal betrayals that led you now to go back to the PhD level and say, I have to understand this, and it sounds like also understand yourself. And in that, you did make some what's been labeled groundbreaking discoveries. So let's talk about what those are.
Yeah. So the first one was, originally I was studying betrayal and post traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, I look at post traumatic growth as sort of the upside of trauma, how whatever that trauma is, death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, leaves you with a new insight, awareness, perspective you didn't have. But I
Yeah.
had been through death of a loved one, I'd been through disease. I was like, betrayal feels different. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everyone in my study. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you?
Mhm.
Unanimously, they said it's so different, and here's why. Because it feels so intentional, and you'll remember from your own experience, right? We take it so personally. So the
Mhm.
entire self gets shattered.
Mhm.
Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like when we lose someone we love, we grieve, we're sad, we mourn the loss, life will never be the same. We don't question that relationship. We don't question our ability to trust. We don't question our sanity, right? With betrayal, you do. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. That was the first discovery.
Wow. Yes. That word intentional, I think,
Mhm.
resonates immediately. That's
Right.
the difference. There you go. Just sum it up in one word. All right. What's the second
Yeah.
discovery?
So the second one was that there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post betrayal syndrome. And we've had over 100,000 people take our post betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. And I'm happy to share some of the stats because they're mind blowing.
Yes, please do.
because it would have been an awkward moment, Anne, if you said no. Okay. Okay. So, as much as you're going to hear these symptoms, listen for these numbers. Okay. This is over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience.
Mm.
81% feel a loss of personal power. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've had a trigger, you know how painful they are. These are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. So you have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep. 63% have extreme fatigue. So you can go to sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, you're using food for comfort. 45% have a digestive issue, and that could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. Some of the most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed.
Mm.
68% can't focus, 62% can't concentrate. Let's just take these numbers. Imagine you can't concentrate, you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you still have to raise your kids, you still have to go to work, right? That's not even emotionally. So,
Right.
emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness.
Wow.
83% are very angry. And you can bounce back and forth between those two all day long. Just a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust.
Yeah.
Think about what an inability to trust would do as far as your work, your relationships, right?
Hmm.
67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. So here's where the big wall goes up. You're like, nope, been there, done that. No one's getting near me again. And we
Yeah.
think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not. That's coming from fear. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I was like taking notes. I'm going, okay, which
Mhm.
ones were me, right? Which ones were I part of that percentage when I went through this? And there were several. And the revisiting, the triggers, the sleep issues,
Mhm.
the eating issues, the digestive issues,
Mhm.
the inability to trust,
Yeah.
and the preventing deep relationships for a while. So all of this until I healed. So I'm hearing physical, I'm hearing cognitive, I'm hearing psychosocial, I'm hearing,
Mhm.
this whole gamut
It
of
hits everything,
it's
everything.
every aspect of your life. Exactly.
And
So
and
I
here's what's even I just wanna just
yeah.
mention this one other thing.
Mhm.
You didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high.
Yeah.
This is what's crazy. They're
Mhm.
also not even representative of a recent betrayal.
Mm.
This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember, they may not even be alive. And
Yeah.
here we are decades later with symptoms because it's been unhealed. The good news is you could heal from all of it. That was the third discovery.
And what a discovery that is, that you can heal from all of it. And we're going to talk a lot about that later in the show. I am just amazed at these. I have led separation divorce support groups for 28 years. So I've done sort of, I guess, I've done my own studies, though they're not been formal, right? And so I can tell you that this is true for so many people.
Yeah.
And what I find is often, again, it's not their first betrayal that's led to their divorce, right? That or their separation, that I'm now meeting them at this point in their life. And there's something before that. And often what we can unearth if I work with them more one on one later is that there's been a lot of self betrayal in
Mhm.
there in between and maybe post. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that later on as well. It is time for our first break. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the healing that is possible because and I'm going to tell you, Debbie, I meet people sometimes they come for divorce support, it's not even fresh for them then. It
Mhm.
may be 7 years. I had one woman in my group one time, it had been 20 years, and
Oh,
she's
yeah.
just now seeking support and help for that loss, and still in a bit of denial about the fact that there was even cheating and betrayal in her marriage. So everything's resonating that you're saying, and that you've been able to validate in your studies. Don't go far, everyone. We'll be back with more Soul CPR and with Dr. Debi Silber. See you soon.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Soul CPR today here on the Bold Brave TV network. I'm Ann Papayotti, along with my guest, Dr. Debi Silber. Debi, please, let's talk about the healing part. There is a journey, and I loved how you said the good news is no matter how long ago that this has maybe occurred in someone's past, and no matter what percentage they may fall in any of these the things that you mentioned that somebody may experience, whether it's in their physical well-being, their emotional well-being, or even in their mindset. What you came up with 5 stages of healing, actually. What would you say? What are we experiencing? What do we need to do to heal?
Yeah. And just to show you how long this can go on, just a real super brief story. We had a
Sure.
woman in our community in her mid 80s, and she had a 70+ year digestive issue from a family betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her it was like one of those. 70+ years with a digestive issue. 2 weeks into the program, into healing, she healed from a 70+ year digestive issue. I mean,
That's
that's what
an,
happens.
that's an amazing testimony.
Yeah. I
I'll
mean, that's what
never.
happens when you deal with the symptoms
Yeah,
and
yeah,
with the root cause versus the symptoms. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember having a medical doctor telling me, when you graduate, when you fall in love, and when you something anyway, this will go away. And I had the formation of an ulcer, and I had
Mhm,
skin
mhm.
issues, and I had all this stuff. Well, of course, it didn't go away when I graduated and fell in love because I hadn't healed, but it did go away when I did the work of healing. All right, so
Exactly.
talk to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the third discovery showed up, for me, this was personally the most exciting. And what was discovered was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms of post betrayal syndrome that you heard, to
Hmm.
this completely rebuilt place called post betrayal transformation, where you've rebuilt your life and yourself. You're going to move through 5 proven, predictable stages. And what's
Yeah.
even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every one of those stages. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing
Okay.
is entirely predictable, and happy to share the stages if you want to hear them.
Let's hear them. Yeah.
Okay, so stage one, this is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine four legs of a table, the four legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I found with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and mental thinking and doing. We're so good at that, right? And kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if a table only has two legs, it's going to be easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage two, shock, trauma, D-Day. Discovery Day. Everyone remembers their D-Day. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, you've gotten the news that forever changes your life. You have ignited the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, and disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot wrap your mind around what you just learned. This
That's
makes
right.
no sense. And your worldview has just been shattered.
Mhm.
Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. Trust this person. These are the rules. This is how life works. And in one earth shattering moment or series of moments, every rule you've been holding to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. It's terrifying. And I'm sure you remember exactly where
Oh,
you
yeah.
were, exactly what happened. Everybody does, right? But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage three. Survival instincts emerge. And this is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Where do I go? Who can I trust? Here's the trap though. Stage three, by far, hands down, is the most common place we get stuck, just like that woman you mentioned
Mhm.
earlier. And here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And
Yeah.
because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage four or stage five. Transformation doesn't even begin until stage four. But because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And four things start to happen. The first one is, and you'll see yourself when you were in this place. We start getting those small self benefits. We get to be right. We get our story. We get someone to blame. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to, and we're
Mhm.
not getting much else. So this is the only thing that feels good. So we take it. So we plant deeper roots.
Yeah.
And now, because we're here longer than we should be, the mind starts questioning and doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now, because these are the thoughts we're thinking, this is the energy we start putting out.
Mhm.
Like energy attracts like energy. So now we start attracting, this is where that new relationship shows up. We start
Yeah.
attracting people and circumstances to confirm this is where we belong. Like here's where we'll go to therapy. And if that therapist isn't highly skilled in betrayal, we'll feel heard, validated, understood. We're not an inch closer to stage four.
Right.
Here's where we'll join some lame support group and now we found our people. So we will sabotage ourselves because we found our people.
Yeah.
Here's where we're healing, but we'll sabotage our healing because we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer. Does this make sense so far?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we have to get through our day. So right here, we start numbing,
Mhm.
avoiding, distracting.
Mhm.
So here's where we start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, whatever. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure the client that you saw,
Mhm.
in order to numb, avoid, distract. So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing or that drinking, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they look at me like I'm crazy. They'd say, it
Right.
happened 20 years ago. All they did was lock themselves in stage three and stay
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
You see?
I see it. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
I experienced it. I lived it.
Mm-hmm.
And and when I came out of it and understood it, and while I didn't have the training you have, I was able to put it in a process
Mm-hmm.
to back out of it, right? And to help others back out of it in a different way. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't have it labeled this way, but it is my CPR. ultimately. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I love it because Debbie's given me validation for what the process that I came through. But I love the stages, and you're
Well, can I
right.
get you to stage 4 and 5?
Yes, please do. But people do get stuck there. That's where I meet them. I meet them at that
Mhm.
stage. That's where they come to me at.
I'm sure. Yeah. And so here's what they can look forward to.
Yes.
If they're willing to
Hmm.
grieve, mourn the loss, get rid of their story, a bunch of things they need to do, they can move to stage 4.
Yes.
Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Just in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but that decision stopped the massive damage
Yeah.
that was being accumulated in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like, and you'll remember this, feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, whatever, your stuff's not there, it's not quite cozy yet, but it's like this sort of hopeful excitement, right?
Mhm.
But here's what's interesting. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you, right? You don't take the things that don't represent who you're now ready to become. And what I found was there's this one spot as people go from stage 3 and stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. That support group, you're done. That therapist who doesn't understand betrayal, you're done. The betrayer who's not changing, you're done. And people ask me all the time, Dr. Debbie, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come along.
That's
Very
right.
common to question our relationships in this stage. Anyway, when we settle into this, we make it cozy, kind of, we make it mentally home, we move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now we do. The mind is healing. We're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road we just traveled. And we have a whole new worldview based on everything we see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point,
Mhm.
we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
I love it. I love that how you've call it healing and rebirth because I think that's exactly what happens
Mhm.
in the rebirth. And I love how the analogy of the move because you don't take everything with you, but you take the best parts of you. And I think what people have to do is they have to look back and remember who they were before the initial trauma, whatever the trauma was, and if betrayal was the first trauma or whether it was a subsequent trauma because you'd already started self-betraying at some point and it led you into this. Wherever it was, and finding those best parts of you and then making them better and enhancing them and boundarying them, as you're saying. So being a people pleaser is something I find that has led people into relationships where they're manipulated or taken advantage of in some way. And then that often leads to, it happens to be with people who then often will betray you because they can. Um,
Mhm.
Things of that nature. So finding and going back and remembering who you are and what are the beautiful parts of you, and not that there's something wrong with that wanting to please people, but how do you do it in balance and how
Mhm.
do you make that something that can be protected? So I love the house analogy and the moving analogy and all of these things. And it's how do we put fences around it, and how do we have a doormat that says welcome but wait to be invited in.
Yeah. And I love that you're bringing up just taking the parts with you that you love, because this is where, when you're moving to stages 4 and stage 5, you are
Mhm.
intentionally and deliberately recreating yourself where you are. You're taking all the parts you love and you're leaving behind everything that no longer serves. And you're creating a version of you that would never have had the opportunity to be created had the experience not happened. That's trauma
That's
well served. Like here's a silly example, but this is something that I did. I
I love
used to be very hard on myself. Like just always criticizing myself and being super critical. I wouldn't have a friend in the world if I spoke to them the way I spoke to myself. So
yeah.
after my betrayal, when I was deliberately and intentionally recreating myself, I didn't like that I was doing that. And I was like, I'm so done with that. I'm just done. So now, like for example, I get lost wherever I go. This is just what happens. So I know to leave extra time. It's just the way it goes. So I decided that, it's going to be a far reach to say I'm not going to do those things again. But if I do, going forward, they're simply adorable. And that's it. So I'm going to do the same things and I'm going to call it just adorable. And it just, one of those things happened just today. And the harsh critical was about to come in. And I was like, no, that was a very adorable thing that you just did. Like, you get to define all of it. And the beauty is, after betrayal, you get to recreate it. And you create that version of you that is so confident and healthy and healed and whole and empowered. That's the
Yeah.
gift. That's who's waiting for you in stages 4 and 5.
And it's so beautiful, and it's like a redesign of your life, if you will, and it's fun. There's
Right.
something fun about that, and it's super empowering. And I love that you use the word decision. That
Mhm,
was at stage 4, started with the decision.
mhm, mhm,
When people realize the power of choice in their lives and they claim it, and they claim it for themselves, it allows them to show up in differently in relation to others. And I love the difference between those two prepositions, for yourself and to others. And it's
mhm,
just, it can change your life. Just the smallest things, but it starts with that decision and then the commitment to follow through. And as you said earlier, people don't know the how. And
mhm,
it's time for our second break. So when we come back, I want you to talk a little bit about the how that you have, that maybe you work with people, how you work with people at your institute to actually implement the hows.
mhm,
So don't
mhm.
go far, everyone. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Soul CPR, everyone. We are talking about betrayal today, but we are on the upside of that, because the good news today is Dr. Debi has told us we can heal, and it doesn't matter how long it has been that since we've experienced a major betrayal in our lives. So, Debi, we make the decision
Mhm.
that we are through just surviving this. We're through being in that blame game, and just we having those roots, as you said, and numbing behaviors, perhaps, and self-sabotaging. So here we go. We've made the decision to heal. What do we do? How do we
Yeah.
do it?
And the decision is wonderful. You want to make sure it's real. And
Right.
the first thing is, I would say there are these 4 questions I invite everybody to ask themselves to see if they're numbing, avoiding, distracting. Because if so, it's going to be holding you back. So I invite you to write these down, which is my way of saying write these down. Ready? Are you numbing, avoiding, distracting? If so, how? Like, call yourself on it. Do you walk into the kitchen? You're not the least bit hungry. There you are in the cabinets.
Right.
The second question, what am I pretending not to see? Am I pretending not to see my relationship is in trouble? Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my attention, right? What am I pretending not to see? The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? We don't want to play it out, but you need to. Take a look. Dealing with it or not dealing with it exactly as you are. Play that out over 5 to 10 years, and what does that look like? And the fourth question, what can life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? Right? I'm not saying it's easy. Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth. So that would be the first thing that I'd recommend. The second thing is I would check your willingness. When I was doing the study, I thought, well, the ones who were the hardest hit would grow the least because they had the most to overcome. That had nothing to do with it. It was the ones who were willing, blew the doors off of the others. And in fact, there were 3 groups who didn't heal. So again, I invite everybody to see if you're doing this because it will prevent you from your healing. 1, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer or anti-anxiety medication. They emotionally ate whatever they did. May have made the day a bit easier to get through, not without a price they didn't heal.
That's right.
The second group, this was the group, they had their story and they were sticking with it. Like the woman you said, right? With the divorce.
Yep.
They refused to let go of their story. They didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether it was out of religious reasons, that was a big one, financial fear, whatever it was, they did all they could to look the other way, turn the other cheek. I saw 2 things with this group. Number 1, a further deterioration of the relationship. And 2, this group was the most physically sick. Your broken
Wow.
heart can't handle that. So I invite everybody, take a look and see if you're preventing your healing. So check that willingness and see if you say you're ready, but are you really? Because you have to let go of that story. You have to let go of certain things. So a lot of people, I've had people who said, Dr. Debi, I'd love to work with you, but can you get my mind so that I'm okay with my partner who's going to keep betraying me? I mean, I've actually had people come to me with this. Like they want me to do some kind of mind work on them so they're okay with that. No, no,
No. No.
no.
No.
So check your willingness and then know what stage you're in. Because if you know what stage you're in, then there are certain things you do just to move from one stage to the next.
Yeah. There's a difference between being willing and being
Mm-hmm.
able.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps in the inability to heal might require a different kind of therapy. Would you agree? Maybe they really are in a deep depression or something of that nature. And so maybe there's a different ladder for them to have to climb before they can get to this stage or this process. What would you say about that?
Especially when you're in stage 2, shock trauma, therapy has a beautiful place. It can be very complementary. But when you're only working on the same thing year after year and you're feeling just like I said before, heard, validated, understood, and that's it.
Mhm.
That's when you want to try something in addition to. And also because betrayal hits us on every
Mhm.
level needs to be addressed. Somatic, the body-based activities need to be done too. The issues are in the tissues. Betrayal hits us everywhere.
Yes. I have I have members of my own family that have been in therapy for years and years and years for the very same issues. And
Yeah.
and as a coach, it's very frustrating for me to want to say, let's find something action oriented and future focused to
Mhm.
add to what you're doing,
Mhm.
and to the medications. As you're saying, there's just so much more healing that could happen,
Mhm.
or healing that could begin, I'd like to say, that has
Yes.
not even been initiated, and it's sad to see people get lost and stuck, as you say, in this way, and miss the opportunity to live their best lives and to enjoy their most rewarding relationships and to move forward. And speaking of that, you have a very incredible personal story about your journey of betrayal that I find very few people end up at this place. And you have this forgiveness day. So where does forgiveness play in the
Mhm.
role of healing? And how
Yeah.
did it play out in your life specifically?
Sure. Well, first of all, the PBT Institute founded National Forgiveness Day, September 1st. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're a sucker. It doesn't mean you're setting yourself up for it to happen again. It doesn't mean you're a pushover. It means you value yourself enough to let go of all that pain that this power has over you. So that's really what it's about. It's not about the other person. It's about you. Healing is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move along. That's what I did with my family. It just wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And that's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two completely transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. You know, betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It actually can also wake them up to who they temporarily became. Not that you need to do anything with that, but there's tremendous opportunity there if you choose.
Yeah. What an incredible story, and so happy for you and your family that is the outcome that you all experienced. But again, that's because of the healing work that was done by both you and your husband, obviously, to come back together. You mentioned your family you had to let go of, and I have clients who are dealing with estrangements in their families, and that's a very difficult thing for them. But I think this applies to them as well, is getting to that point, getting out, unstuck from that place where they're holding on to the story and being able to value themselves as well, right?
It's tremendously painful because these were the people that gave you a sense of safety and security. So when this is the person, these are the people, to take that very sense of safety and security away, it's shattering. It's absolutely shattering. But when you realize that they're just coming from their lens, their perspective, doing the best they can with their limited tools. And I'll tell you, I mean, this is going to sound so crazy, but we had 6 dogs at one time, and I'll never forget one day. It's like, you know, when you just have like this aha moment. And I remember looking at all of them, they're just playing. And it struck me, and I said, you know, it's interesting because I would never look at them and not expect them to act like dogs. They're dogs. That's what dogs do. Why am I looking at my family to do anything other than what they consistently show? That's on me.
Yes, expectations.
Yeah.
Right. Expectations lead to
Yeah.
disappointments.
Hmm.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure people will relate to that and hopefully benefit from that. Now,
Hmm.
when we get back to that word trust, I wrote down, you said 84% from your
Hmm.
study had the inability to trust again.
Yeah.
And that, of course, impacted more than just their intimate relationships. It was going to their jobs and beyond.
Hmm.
What about the ability to trust oneself again, and then to be able to find discernment, like to be able to trust other relationships? What do you have to say
It's
about that?
Yeah, it's such a great question because when trust is shattered, this is the way it works. Here's the person you trusted the most who just proved untrustworthy. So then the next step of that is, where was I? How did I not see? How did I not know? Now we don't trust ourselves. So if we don't trust the person we trusted the most and we don't trust in ourselves, how in the world can we trust in that boss, that coworker, that collaborative partner, anybody on the outside? So it all has to be rebuilt, but it has to be rebuilt from the ground up. And what we tend to do is we don't necessarily work to rebuild the trust in ourselves or in the person we trusted the most. We just want to give it back.
Mm,
And that's a setup for really some heartbreak. And trust has a similar timeline to forgiveness. It takes a bit. I mean, of course, when you're forgiving for yourself, not for someone else, but it still takes a bit of time. And even and when I was doing this study, I remember reading one study that said when you forgive and you don't feel safe and valued, you feel worse. When you forgive and you
Mhm.
feel safe and valued, you feel better, right? And that's because the way it works is like with trust. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy, that's like a brick building a brick wall. So you could see how it takes time. Now
Mhm.
imagine over time, this brick wall is built. Now the person who built the brick wall shatters the whole thing. You're looking at that rubble of bricks. You can say, I don't have the least bit of interest in watching that thing get rebuilt. Totally fine. Walk away. However, if you choose to watch that brick wall be rebuilt, that would be your role. The person who tore it down has to be a really good bricklayer and put the bricks down the same way as they went up the first time, brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity, they have to show that they're trustworthy. That's one brick in that brick wall. But here's what I so often see: the brick wall that's taken time is built, it's shattered. The person who shattered the brick wall doesn't have much of an interest in rebuilding it. So the other person who's been betrayed, they're like, fine, I'll do it. No, it's not your job.
Not your
That's
job.
why they're hypervigilant. That's why they don't feel safe. That's why they don't trust.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for that. It is time for our third and final break, Debbie. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you to please share how people can get in touch with you, your key takeaway for them, and a little more about your institute. Don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorich, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, and we are at the conclusion portion of our show. And Debbie, I would love to know, what would your key takeaway be for our audience, for people who are listening and relating to the concept of betrayal trauma and
Yeah.
transformation?
Absolutely. The first thing I'd want them to know is if you have to repeat this a million times, it's worth it. Even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It's
Oh,
not about you. And we even have a program for the betrayer, and they tell me all the time, it's not about my partner. This was me, and not making an excuse. This was their issue. It's never, never your fault.
right. While they're maybe in a state, they may assign blame to their partner, but when they
Mhm.
finally do their healing work, they will admit that, right? They'll back that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us about the Institute. Tell us about how people can connect with you and find you online and all your social media.
Thank you. So everything is at the PBT, as in Post Betrayal Transformation Institute.com, the PBT Institute.com. We have, it's really everything the research proved works. So I certify a lot of coaches, the best of the best, get to work within PBT. We teach daily live classes. They have private sessions. Members have private sessions with our coaches. They're all certified in moving you through the 5 stages, but they specialize in everything having to do with what you'd experience after betrayal. So we have someone who's great for stage 2 because she's a somatic body-based coach. Mindset as we get further along, reconciliation, separation and divorce, self-growth. I mean, I have a coach for everything. Our signature program, which literally moves you through the stages, and everything's numbered according to what stage you're on. And you have a way to self-assess. It takes a minute. And this way you do everything for stage 2 until you're in stage 3. Then you do everything for stage 3 until you're in stage 4. So it's a way to fast track your healing. And then, like I said, we have a program for the betrayer as well. We have a lot of couples who one goes through our rebuild for the betrayer, reclaim for the betrayed, and they just come out as just a beautiful new couple.
I love that. Rebuild and reclaim. That's beautiful. So, Debbie, so if I'm understanding it correctly, this literally is a linear journey of
Mhm.
healing, whereas grief, we know, cycles through and it's not
Mhm.
linear. But
Mhm.
this truly is what you've learned in your research is a linear process that it
Everything
goes.
happens at a certain place. I mean, there's a reason why our signature program is mapped out the way it is. Like, for example, we mentioned forgiveness. If we bring up forgiveness too early, it's going to backfire every single
That's
time. We're not ready for it. So everything is in the order that the research proved uh, works in that order, in that way. And like I said, if the research proved it works, it's in there. If the research proved that it's not really that effective, it's not. So it's already been curated, and like it's 3 months. So if you want to move through the stages, and if you are intentional and deliberate, you will.
beautiful. I love that. So I like to try to have a key takeaway too, and I think what I've learned from you that I would say is my key takeaway is that with the right support and the right process, that you don't just survive betrayal, you can thrive because of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. I love how you said that. It is one of the most painful of the human experiences. And you don't go through something like that just to get back to where you were. You go
that's
through
right.
something like that to create a version of you that the version of you now is going to love meeting.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, with that, it is time for us to close out today's show. And Debbie, thank you so much for being a guest on Soul CPR. I'm so grateful, and I know my guests will benefit so much. And I encourage
Thank
them to reach out to you and to connect with you. So
thank you.
as we close out today's episode of Soul CPR, please everyone remember that healing is not always super linear. So don't beat yourself up if you don't find yourself going 1, 2, 3, but it is a process of profound transformation, as Debbie has so graciously shared with us and eloquently as her process offers. If today's story and episode resonated with you, then please share this podcast with someone who may need a lifeline of their own. And please subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help us reach more hearts. You can all the connection for Debbie will be in the show notes. And as always, you can also connect with me at Skyview Coaching on Facebook and at Ann Papayotti on all the other social media channels. So let me know your thoughts, your stories, and what you'd like us to discuss more of here on Soul CPR. The show's for you, and we're going to make it happen. So thank you for listening. And until next time, may you find strength in your vulnerability and courage in your journey. Breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. Good day, everyone.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayoti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.